All right, so this is from the Military Times Observation Post. Title reads, Space Force sitcom starring Steve Carell landing on Netflix in May. This article is dated 3 years ago, or actually 3 days ago, 3 years ago, 3 days ago. And we've got a picture here of Steve Carell in a very unofficial uniform that's, I guess, supposed to look like whatever they think the Space Force uniform is going to look like. And it says Space Force lands on Netflix March 29th as the caption. Even as a global pandemic threatens our way of life, there still exists occasional moments that are not shrouded entirely in the impending doom of our species. Netflix graced the public with one such joyous rarity Wednesday, when the media titan confirmed that Steve Carell's newest workplace comedy, Space Force, would be available to stream starting May 29th. The release of the 10-episode season, an obvious nod to President Donald Trump's launch of the U.S. military's newest branch, coincides with the pending loss of Carell's iconic sitcom, The Office, which is expected to move over to NBC's soon-to-launch streaming platform, Peacock. Space Force, co-created by Carell and Greg Daniels, the man who brought us the American version of The Office, centers on the exploits of four-star General Mark R. Nierd, which is Carell's character, a decorated pilot who once had lofty dreams of leading the Air Force. Much to his chagrin, Nierd is instead appointed as the head of the military's sixth branch, a service whose mission is, quote, to defend satellites from attack and, quote, perform other space-related tasks or something, the show's teaser trailer says. Skeptical but dedicated, Mark uproots his family and moves to a remote base in Colorado where he and a colorful team of scientists and spacemen are tasked by the White House with getting American boots on the moon again in a hurry and achieving total dominance, a Netflix release said. Wednesday's announcement was made to the delight of fans everywhere who, due to the scarcity of details since the show was first announced in 2019, were beginning to question whether it was even in development. And there's some pictures here. This is from the show. Says, what do you think? This was some kind of joke. Space Force is coming May 29th. And we can also see that Gwyneth Paltrow is supposed to be joining the cast, along with some other fairly big names. So, Peter, had you heard about this show that's coming out on Netflix?
Yeah, I did hear about the show. I'm hoping they bring back Kevin from The Office, but we'll see.
Of course, a lot of people are already saying that this is going to be The Office, in space or something along those lines. The reason I brought it up as a daily distraction was because this article is being promoted by the Military Times. And as what we will talk about a more serious issue that we've been talking about that's also being covered extensively by the Navy Times, which is part of the Military Times. I just thought it was interesting that they decided to kind of promote this. As much as I think it might be tongue-in-cheek, I also think that it is indeed meant to embarrass the current commander-in-chief of it. And that's why I brought it up.
What do you think the commentary is on the president?
Well, I think it's very clear that they're trying to say that the Space Force is a joke. I mean, that's pretty obvious. So it's right there plain for everyone to see. Space Force, of course, is not a joke. It actually is basically the Space Command, which talks about making it a separate branch of the military long before Trump came to office. In fact, I'm not sure if I related it on this show, but one of my friends was an officer in the Air Force during the Second Iraq War. He was actually deployed to Baghdad. This was when George W. Bush was president, and he recalled to me that during some training that he was involved with very early in his career, he was required to do a topic, a set topic. He could choose from multiple topics for one of his training, and one of those topics was the U.S. Space Command as its own military branch. So the Air Force has been talking about this for at least over a decade. It's a serious topic where they've been actually having their Air Force officers take it up as a yay or nay. And he also related to me that during that training, one of the other young officers was going to Space Command and had been talking about that a little bit because she was actually going to be assigned to Space Command. So that's why I kind of brought it up as a distraction, as much as it might be kind of like a fun series or something like that, depending on whether you like Steve Carell or not. I just thought it was interesting that the military is promoting it because I do think that there's a bit of I think there's a bit of bias on their editorial board as far as some anti-Trump sentiment.
Is the Military Times, is that funded by the government? Is it like AFN?
As far as I know, it's fully independent. As far as I know,
Okay.
it's 100% private and independent. But it is widely circulated on military bases. It is widely considered sort of the go-to publication for anything related to military issues, especially for people that are actually in service. People in service read this. Admirals, generals, they read this. They read the Military Times, whether it be the Army Times, Navy Times, whatever. When I was in the reserves, anytime you went on a base, there were Navy Times, and also on the reserve base, there were Navy Times everywhere. It was easy to just grab it and read it.
I remember Stars and Stripes growing up, but I don't remember the Military Times, and I seem to recall that Stars and Stripes was kind of a joke, that people really didn't take it very seriously as a news source.
Stars and Stripe is still around.
Yeah,
and I've seen hard news from Stars and Stripes, and
yeah,
I think I don't know this for sure, but I think they might even be owned by the same conglomerate. I'm not positive about that.
Yeah, they could be, but they were more of a tabloid. They would just post a lot of kind of, it bleeds, it leads type of stuff. Whereas Military Times seems a little more buttoned down.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Although, like I said, I have seen actual hard news articles, at least on the Stars and Stripes Twitter feed. In fact, I've used some of them before. I might have even retweeted some of them, but occasionally I do see some pretty big hard news from them.